Hey fellas, welcome to part 3 of the rocket ship build. In this exciting episode, I show you how I apply gloss coats, apply natural metal finish, I get decals on it. In fact, I get it 99% done. All I need to do is apply the final gloss coat, put it together, and well, I do need to finish the base. I do show you how I'm going to finish that. And then I'll be done with it. So the next video should be the finale, and I should have the finished rocket ship in that video. I am happy with how this is turning out. Of course, you know, who knows what can happen between now and the time I actually get it put together. But I'm really happy with this. I'm really stoked about it. Stoked. That's a term. I think it's an 80s term. Anyway, so let's get on with the video. Okay, I am putting the gloss black coat on every part that's going to have natural metal finish to it. And I get a lot of questions about this, about painting and stuff. So I thought I would show you how I apply my gloss coats. So here's what this cylinder looks like. Get a better look at it. Got a little bit of a, I don't know what happened up here, but there's a little bit of something. So I'm going to have to sand or do something up here and fix that. But other than that, I am pretty happy with this finish. Now it's really glossy. I could come back and buff it, but I don't really think that's necessary. And this is done over the primer coat that I had laid down that I had wet sanded. So what I use for my gloss coats under my natural metal finishes is Mr. Color GX2, and it's kind of hard to come by. And I thin it with Mr. Color leveling thinner. I've got an Iwata HPCS with a I think it's a 0.35 millimeter nozzle. And my PSI is set to about 15. You know, it all varies. I mean, you know, you just kind of gotta experiment and see what works for you, but this is what works for me. So what I'll do for my initial base coat is I will take my GX2 and I'm gonna mix a 40% paint to 60% thinner for my first base coat. So let's get some paint in here. And I'll mix it in these cups just so you can see. Set this aside. Okay, now I'm going to take my Mr. Color leveling thinner and I'm going to get just a little bit more thinner than I did paint. And that's probably close enough. Okay. Black. All right. Mix it up real good. In fact, let's get a couple of paper towels down here. Now you really want to keep paper towels and stuff away from your paint because all the little particles of paper towel can become gribblies and get onto your paint work. Now I have a fan on in the window. I should be wearing a respirator, but this is a small part that I'm going to show. So, you know, I'm just taking a risk with my health right here, fellas. But this is a lacquer. This is stuff that's not good to breathe in, so wear a respirator. I normally do, and I've got my window open with a fan in the window right here next to my... Okay, let's put a lid on so I don't spill crap all over. I think I've shown this before, but it doesn't hurt to go over it again because I get a lot of questions on this. So I thought, yeah, we'll just show it. Got a lot of newer viewers that haven't seen a lot of my other videos. So I get a nice even coat, even layer. down. And one thing I learned from Will Pattison, when you have an area right here where there's a 90-degree angle, you want to spray, you don't want to spray right straight on. You want to spray where, like at an angle here, so the paint has somewhere to escape. Otherwise, you get it rolling around and it causes rough area because the paint particles are just spinning around and drying right there along that crease. Looks like I got a greebly in there. Darn it. Okay. Now I'm not real concerned about if it's just a little rough, because it is going to be. And let me find something to set this down in. All right, there we go. Okay, now what I'm going to do is we're going to take some more thinner, and I'm just going to thin down what's in my color cup. So I'm going to have I'm going to add, I usually just do this by feel and by eye, but I've got about that much in my color cup, and I'm going to add about another, I don't know, I'm going to double the amount in thinner. So basically I'm just doubling the amount of liquid, but with thinner this time. And I'm going to spray wet. So what I mean by wet is that I want to be able to see it smooth on there, but I don't want to go so far that it runs. So I want to do a pass until I get it nice and wet. Okay, just like that. See how that's nice and wet, but it's still not, it's not running. So you got to be careful. You can't stay on one spot too long. As soon as you see it get wet, you got to move. So I will set this down, and we will do this one. We got to get this top part. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Now I'm not blasting this on here. I got the trigger pulled back about maybe a quarter of the way. And what this is going to allow the paint to do, because it's so thin, it's going to have time to level out and level that coat underneath as well. It was somewhat coarse. Okay. Now you could probably stop here, but a lot of times what I like to do is I'll let this dry a little bit, and then I will add a little bit more thinner, so it's basically 80 to 90% thinner to 10 to 20% paint, and then I will go over it and put another wet coat, and it gives it a real nice gloss sheen. But I think I'm going to be satisfied with this right here. We'll let it dry. We'll come back and look at it when it's all dry. All right, let's take a look at what we've got. Now, I did try to come back and fix this greebly, and I got a pretty decent gloss coat. Now, one thing that I didn't do with the primer coat on the actual Moonship was I didn't wet sand it. It was pretty smooth as it was, but I could have gotten it really smooth, and I didn't do that. I didn't really think it was necessary. I'm going to spray this a titanium color, so it's going to be a little bit different than the aluminum I'm going to spray the boosters. So I think that's going to be okay, but it is a relatively good gloss coat. Now you could come back and buff this and it would be really shiny. I'm not going to do that. Like I said, I don't think it's going to matter with the titanium color. And same thing with the other one. Now I didn't do anything extra with this. I didn't spray it again since I sprayed it on video. And it's pretty glossy. I mean, it could be a little bit more glossy, but it's serviceable with the titanium color that I'm going to use. So, and there's the gloss coat just sprayed on the plastic. This is going to be on the inside, so I really didn't need to put another primer coat underneath that. So that's how I do my gloss coats. I hope that helps some of you guys, and we'll get to masking up and spraying the boosters here in a bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the nose cones and the Moonship this titanium color from AK Extreme Metal. Now this is my favorite metallic finish. It's pretty much dumb-proof. Alclads may look a little bit better in some instances, but I think these AK Extreme Metals are a lot more durable. One thing is, though, I haven't used this in a while. You can see all this pigment down here that isn't mixed in with the rest of the paint. So what you really need to do, you got to shake it up real well, but also get down in there and mix it up. Make sure you got all those metal flakes nice and mixed up and all that pigment. And then you pull it out and you can see some of it's still on there. So I haven't used this in a while. So you want to be careful not to get those chunks in your airbrush. It just clogs it up. So just shake it up real good. And instead of using my pipette to grab the paint from the bottom, I will get it from the top. So let me grab another pipette. Now this stuff is really nasty smelling, so I will put on my respirator. Let's get in here. Okay. close this up. I always close up my paints because I will knock it over and spill it. Let me get my respirator on and we will spray my titanium. A few moments later, now with this stuff, you don't want to get too close. Just come over and give it a nice even coat, light passes. And it does dry pretty quick. Okay, so there we go. Simple as that. It's pretty much stupid proof, so that means I can use it. And I will get on spraying the rest of the nose cones and the moon chip. Then we'll come back and I will mask up. Get this stupid respirator off. I will come back and mask up the boosters and we'll paint that aluminum. Alright, I've got everything painted titanium that's going to be painted that way. Here's a small nose cone, and it will fit on there just like that. I did do a little bit of sanding before I ended up with my final primer coat, just so these weren't so tight. So I got these on here, and I'm going to paint the boosters aluminum and black. Now, I don't have to paint the black, obviously, because I've already got this nice GX2 coat. So I'm just going to mask off segments to paint black, like you see in this Fine Scale Modeler magazine. And the owner had supplied me with some 1/72nd scale decals. Now this is supposed to be 196, but the decals are all old and crummy, and I don't have them handy at the moment. But he did send me these 72nd scales, and I think with the longer boosters, they'll look okay. Well, what I need to do when I mask these off is make sure that I've got the rockets and my masking oriented correctly, so the white in the decal shows up in the black and the black shows up in the aluminum part. So I've already got these masked off, and then I'll just go ahead and fill the rest of this in with masking tape. But I've got them just so the decals will go on just like so, and I need to double check before I spray, just to make sure. So this is down, and the decal will go on just like this, and this will be aluminum. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to get these masked up, and we will be back in a minute. I will probably spray these off camera. I'm going to spray them just like I did the titanium stuff, just light coats, and probably 3 layers. And I don't want to get real heavy wet coats of that aluminum, because I don't want it seeping in through the panel lines and getting into the black. I mean, I can touch it up rather easily, but it's just going to be a lot easier if I don't have to do that. Now, I am sure that once I spray the aluminum, that I will see some errors that I'm not seeing now. But it looks pretty good to my eye right now, so I don't know. We'll see. Once you get a metal finish on something, you can really see all the little mistakes, but I'm not seeing any in the black, so that's good. See you in a minute. All right, guys, let's take a look at what we've got done. I basically have everything painted. I just need to put the final clear coat on the boosters and the moon ship, and I should be ready to assemble what I have to assemble. So let's take a look at this. I've got the upper platform pieces on, and you know, from what I had to work with, I think I did a pretty decent job. It's not perfect, but all these little broken parts, I went ahead and just cut off some pieces from the extra part that I had. I thought I had more than what I did. I only had one extra part, but Right there, I was a repair job and a couple other places. It's kind of hard to tell unless you look real close, so I'm happy with the way that turned out. Now, I did test fit it, and the rockets do sit on there when they're configured, so that's cool. The boosters are done and flat coated. It's the only thing on this is going to be flat coated, and I painted those like an iron color. Here's a little bitty nose cone for the moonship. It's gloss red. These little landing things that go in the booster nose cones. I painted up the little people in the moonship. The owner wants this to be able to, the canopy to pop open, so I did a lot of sanding and test fitting. I'm not exactly sure how the canopy pops, or the top portion of the moonship pops on and off and stays on, but we'll tackle that bridge when we get there. Without gluing these pieces in, I'm really not going to know how that's going to work. So I did test fit all this stuff and got it all sanded, and it fits in the actual moonship pretty well. And then, of course, the little bitty engine nozzle for the moonship. And I want you to take a look at the boosts, or the boosters, and I am extremely happy with how these turned out. Oh my God. Check out these. So I put the decals on here, and they were 1/72 scale, so I assume he got them from the Fantastic Plastic kit, which is in 1/72 scale. But yeah, I am really, really happy with how these turned out. Yeah, all that work paid off. There may be a few little minor things. I ended up sanding off these nubs that were on there that I couldn't see served any type of purpose and really just kind of looked bad. So I ended up sanding those off actually after I had it ready to go for primer. So I think those are the only parts that may have some witnesses to them, but everything else looks really clean. The decals went on really well. Probably still need to... Now, I did put a gloss coat on this of Tamiya clear, and a real thin coat before I put the decals on, and then I'll put another thin coat on afterwards, but it didn't seem to dull down the metallic finish at all. Somebody had asked me about that earlier, what clear coats I use, and but yeah, I'm really happy with this. And there's a bit of a witness there, but I am have I said I'm happy with it. Now for the base, I've got it all primed and ready to paint, and I've got the edges stained and clear coated and taped off, so I'm ready to paint. But I've spent the last couple weeks kind of tossing around in my head what I want to do with it, and I thought about replicating the box art, but the way the platform would sit on there, it just didn't look right. And so what I've come up with, and I spent a lot of time looking at like 1950s space art, which is, there's a ton of it out there. But I've got my iPad Pro here, and on our Procreate app, I came up with this, and I think it's got a real nice 1950s feel to it. And this will sit on here just like this, and I think it's going to be really, really cool. Probably a little bit bigger than that, but yeah, that's what I came up with. So after I clear coat the boosters and everything else I need to clear coat, I'll probably get to work on this. Probably take me a day. I may tweak a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with what I have here. So that's what I got going on. Stay tuned for the next episode when I show you the finished model, hopefully, if all goes well. And see you then. Thanks, fellas.